So in a previous video, we talked about the differences between Drakewell core and Drakewell configuration, and the four main sections that we have in Drakewell, and the three that we can actually do some configuration around. And those were, if you remember, jobs, personnel, and inventory. So now what we'll do is we'll kind of dig into a little bit more of what can be configured around jobs. So with the job, there are different sections that we can configure, one of them being the statuses of jobs. So right now, when you get Drakewell, kind of the base Drakewell, we've got four main statuses. They're going to be pending, active, invoiced, and then completed. And those are our core statuses that we use internally for Drakewell for some different analytics and stuff, so those can't be changed or altered. But on top of those four, what we can actually do is add additional ones. And some examples of those that we could do would be maybe an upcoming status, a void status, or different kind of fine-grained levels in between our base four. And these are useful just in scenarios where you want to maybe have additional classifications or something like that, where you want to dig in and categorize. So when you do, like, you're searching for jobs, maybe show me all my jobs that are upcoming. They're already past the pending. We've got everything signed off, bids approved. They're upcoming, and we're going to go live in the next week. So that's kind of different examples of how you can break those statuses apart. Now within statuses, you probably already realize that when creating a job and working with it, you've always got to have a bid tied to it. Now, again, core Drakewell, kind of out of the box, every job status requires a bid. But what we can actually do is we can change that. So if you want to do like job proposals and things like that, where you don't necessarily have the bid yet, but you want to go ahead and get that job out there and kind of get it set up, you can do that. And so one of the other things we can configure is, of the statuses, both core and configured that you want, which ones require a bid? Now obviously, anything past active, so active, invoice, completed, those all require a bid because you've actually started on it. And if you remember in Drakewell, when you're working with jobs, we have those billing item types. And they come from the bid, that's what they're pulled from, so hence the reason we have to have them associated together. But you know, pending jobs or any other kind of statuses you have before that pending stage, they don't necessarily need a bid if you don't really have one ready or approved yet, but you can go ahead and create that and move on without that. So that's one of those sections that's configurable within the job. Now another section that's configurable is job numbers. And what they can do, what Drakewell actually has the ability to do is, and you may already have it set up that way, what you can do in Drakewell is when you create a job, you can actually have it auto-generate that job number for you. The reason this is useful is because obviously, as we all know, if maybe I'm working in one district in Midland and I'm creating some jobs right now, and our sister office in Conroe is also creating jobs. And we both go and create the next job, and I say, okay, I'm creating job number 1000, and I get it all set up, and then the sister company over in Conroe, they decide to do job number 1000 as well. Now we have two job number 1000s in the system, and we don't realize it till we're on day 5. Well, that's a problem. So you can actually have Drakewell automatically generate these for you, never have that problem again. Now within the job number formatting, we can pull in different things. So as an example, maybe for your job number format, we'll say you have a job coming up in Texas, maybe in like the Midland area. A typical job number format may be something like Texas, the year, 2017, and then maybe just a counter of how many jobs you've had in Texas in 2017. So 1001. Now this looks pretty complicated, and it's kind of a format that you have to keep up to date and actually pay attention with knowing the job information. But Drakewell can actually do all this for you. So we can actually say, okay, a new job is created. I want to configure so that it's going to always have the state abbreviation first, followed by dash. You can actually configure these dashes as well. If you want underscores, if you just want spaces, you can do all that. We're going to go ahead and go with dashes. I like dashes. So you can go TX dash, you could do a year. Maybe you only want to do just 17. You don't care about 2000. So you can say Texas dash 17, and then a counter. It could start at 1. It could start at 100,000. It doesn't matter, just as long as you're following some base core information that we have available to every job, we can actually generate those jobs. Now we can also, the second part of configuration within a job is the job types. And this is going to be what kind of jobs are you going to want to track in Drakewell. So some examples are going to be, a directional job, an MWD job, maybe a full package job. So you're going to do both directional work and MWD work, or maybe it's a rental job. Maybe you're just creating a job in Drakewell and all you want to do is rent out some motors to this other customer and you just want to track that information. You can actually configure the different types of jobs Drakewell tracks. Now what becomes really cool is you can actually use a combination of the types and generate your own job numbers based on the type. So maybe you want to take our example one step further. So let's go ahead and say right now we're doing Texas 2017 first job of the year. Well, maybe for our directional jobs we want to add a little more. So maybe it's going to be Texas 2017. We're going to go 1001 and it's a directional job. So we're going to put the abbreviation DIR at the end of it. So that way I can easily, just by looking at this number, know that the job's in Texas. I know what year, I know about what time in the year that occurred. So 1001, that's going to be early in the year. And I know it's a directional job. I can see all that and gain all that information and knowledge without even ever look at the job details or anything past that. And so you can have as many job types as you want in Drakewell, and each one could actually have its own kind of formats. So those are the three main areas specifically tied to a job when creating jobs that you can configure. Now there's actually a whole other section. So within jobs, what we also have is activities. And when I say activities, what I'm saying is basically your daily activities. So things that you're tracking day to day as your guys are actually out drilling on the well. So whether that be a trip in, a trip out, taking a survey, slide or rotate, circulating, waiting on tools, waiting on weather, casing, so on and so forth. Now there's obviously kind of a core base set of activity types called WITS activities that you could use. And there's also the IADC activity types. What we have learned is that no two companies really track the exact same activities or activity types or want all that information. So what we can actually do is configure what are the daily activity types that you want to track on a job. And this is going to be just the daily things that the guys do every day and enter in that information. And then when you dig into activities, so we're not only tracking what those activity types are, we can track some base information about them. So we could track or configure like the code for the activity. We can basically say, okay, every time this activity occurs for a time span, let's take those hours and let's add it to the BHA as circulating hours. That's pretty cool. So that means, like, for example, every time you're just doing you're circulating off bottom, you're just sitting there moving mud up and down. What you actually can do is when Drakewell sees those activities, and if you do one for an hour in the morning, again a couple hours in the afternoon, a couple hours in the evening, Drakewell will actually see that, and through some other magic it does of pulling information over to BHAs, it can see all those and say, okay, every circulating activity type I see, I'm going to take that time span, add them all together, and add that to my circulating hours for my BHA, which then gets applied down to all its assets, such as motors. So that's one of the things kind of below activities you can configure. Some other things you can do is, if you've noticed when you're adding activities, like a safety meeting, for example, you can say, okay, do I want to track people? So maybe you want to say, safety meeting, George and Tom, they both attended that meeting. You can actually tag them in an activity to show that. So we can configure which activities you want to tag people. You can also tag assets. So maybe you're drilling, had an incident, and now you had to do some fishing because you lost something. So you're looking for that motor, maybe a sub or something. You can actually say, okay, my activity type is fishing, which again can be configured, and I want to tag what asset I'm actually fishing for. So you can actually tag that asset you're fishing for, which then gets applied back to its history, and you can actually see in its history, okay, I went to this job, went on this BHA, and we fished for it. You can kind of relate that all together. Really cool stuff. And then with activities, you can also configure different activity categories. So we always call them, daily activities, but you can break them up into directional activities or MWD activities, or you can just have them called daily activities. And we've also had some customers break them apart even further. So you have a group of directional activities where your directional guys, they kind of live in that screen, that world. You have a whole separate section for the MWD guys, so they can enter in their own daily activities from sun up to sundown. And then what you can also do is have another section called safety activities, where you just record, we had a safety meeting at 8 in the morning, we have another one again at 3 in the afternoon, and that way you can actually categorize them all do reports and things like that, and keep them unique. So with that, those are the 4 main sections that you can configure within a job, and how you can kind of use those in examples to customize Drakewell and the job tracking for you.